good morning. This is Richard Hsu, host of Hsu Untied. Today I'm really thrilled and honored to have with me as my guest Betty Chen, who's a partner at Desmarais. Betty, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So Betty, I know I've tried to get you on my program for a long time. It's fantastic finally have you on, but maybe let me just sort of ask you to begin with, why you went to law school in the first place.
Well, it was quite a fluke. I was in college and I didn't really know what to do next. I was trying to choose between perhaps opening up a sports bar and other kind of more entrepreneurial adventures, but I realized you actually have to have money to do that. And so I had a good friend who was going to take the LSAT. And so he said, look, you should just try to take the LSAT and see how it goes. And so that's how it took me on that path.
Interesting. How did you like law school?
It was a very different experience. I don't think I knew at all what to expect. And I think it was just such a different area. You know, I was really put outside of my comfort zone. I didn't know about the Socratic method. I probably pronounced, Socrates, Socrates. I did not grow up in that world of philosophy, and so I think I've really learned as I went along.
Yeah. Well, did you end up liking it? I mean, did you like it?
I don't think I enjoyed law school as much as I probably would if I were to take it now. I think if I were to go back to school now, I would love it. But at that time, a lot of it, I was just like, how does it apply practically? I was much more of a doer, and I wanted to just start practicing and figuring out how can I actually impact lives rather than just read about cases where I thought, okay, well, it's already happened. It's history. It's done. Why are we reading about this? Like how can we affect what's going on now with people? And so I was just really eager to kind of get out there.
Interesting. Well, you obviously became an IP litigator, a very well established, prominent IP litigator. How did you choose that area to go into?
That was actually quite a fluke as well. So I think what I could do to help give more color is go all the way back in time as to how I even got to college. Because my college major really people are like, oh, well, whatever you major in college, you probably won't use. I definitely don't use it at all. I mean, I went to USC and got a degree in business with, I think, an emphasis in cinema television. And other than watching a lot of Netflix shows and cinema television now, that's really all I do with that degree. But the way I even got to USC was also kind of a fluke. Everything in life has been kind of a fluke all the way until this point. But the way I could even go back to, I'll let you choose the point in time where you want to hear the story, all the way back to my experience getting to college, or I could go back to my dad's experience because he's what really propelled me to get to this point.
Oh, sure. Start with your dad. Always interested in that. Sure.
Okay, so both my parents were born and raised in Taiwan, and they lived in different parts of the country. They both had very different backgrounds, but my dad was one of 5 kids. He grew up in this tiny little farming village, and his family grew rice and betel nuts. Do you know what betel nuts are?
No.
Okay, so it's similar to dip, which a lot of people probably don't even know what dip is anymore, which is chewing tobacco.
Okay.
But his family grew betel nuts. That's what they did after school every day. And he saw education as this way out. But the village offered education only to middle school. And so all of his siblings kind of didn't get education beyond that. He wanted to go and get more education. So he moved out of his house and moved to Taipei, which is many hours away. And he rented a little apartment, and he went to high school starting at 15. He was living by himself. So it's kind of like an old school Luke Perry 90210, you know, but not really at all, because it's not like a fancy apartment or anything. So he lived by himself when he was 15. Then he went to college, met my mother, got a geology degree. Fast forward, they made their way to Houston, which is where I was born and raised. And when I was growing up, I was 13 years old when I received this letter from USC. And USC had said, you know, we have this program called the Resident Honors Program. I don't think they have it anymore, but they look for 40 kids around the country who want to go to college early. And at that time, I had never heard of USC, had no idea where it was, but I guess similar to my dad, saw this as a way out as well. And so I applied. I received a full tuition scholarship to USC. And at the age of 15, I jumped on a plane and started college at USC.
Wow, that's amazing. So you went to college at 15?
Yeah, I went to college at 15, and then there was no cell phones or anything. And so I really had no way of really communicating with my parents. I remember going to the airport with my 2 bags and a little baggie of quarters to be able to use the payphone to call my parents every once in a while.
That's amazing. So did you drop out of high school, or what happens with high school? You just leave high school?
I left high school. I eventually, I think a year later, came back and graduated from high school, even though I had already been in college.
Huh.
So,
well, what's it like going to college at age 15? I mean, all these kids are so much older than you. I mean, you know, 2 years, when you're that age, 2 years is a huge deal.
I think I was probably too immature to know better. That it was a difference, you know, and so I didn't feel any difference. I don't know if I should have or not. Now that I have 3 kids, I cannot imagine ever letting them do that. You know, I would, I don't want them to even leave when they're 25, 30, much less 15. So
then you also went to law school very young also then, if you went straight through.
Yeah, so I went to law school when I was 18, and so then I graduated when I was 21.
So you graduated from law school when most people are graduating from college.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, no, look, this is the first time I've heard this story. I've interviewed over 200
I've actually
people.
never.
This is the first time I've heard this story. That's pretty amazing, actually. Pretty amazing.
I don't think I've told this story, so there we go.
All right, but you're gonna get to how you got into IP law pretty soon, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So when I graduated from law school at 21, then at that time my parents are still living in Houston. They still are now, and I wanted to find a clerkship that's close to them, and so I applied to a clerkship in Beaumont with Judge Clark, and I went to interview there. I still very much remember this interview with Judge Clark, because we had scheduled this interview, and he was sitting between Beaumont and Lufkin. They're both cities in East Texas. I was in Houston about to go to the interview, and then a hurricane hit. So he had to go up to Lufkin to evacuate. And then I then had to drive from Houston to Lufkin, and I interviewed with him, you know, just kind of, I think it was right in the aftermath of the hurricane.
Wow.
But anyways, and so I was worried. This is very distinct in memory, because I remember thinking, what do I do if I run out of gas? Because all the gas stations at that time were closing down. All these people were trying to evacuate the area. But anyway, he gave me an offer, and that was just really a formative part of my career. I really think that my clerkship with him it was the best job I've ever had, or probably ever will have. And that's how I became a patent litigator, because at that point in time, I had no idea what kind of law I wanted to do. In the
Right.
summer, I had clerked for an oil company, Devon Corporation in Oklahoma City. I thought I would still be, I would do energy law because that's the environment that I was in. And I thought about doing employment law. But when I was clerking with Judge Clark, I saw all of these patent cases, and I watched Markman hearings and many patent trials, and I realized this is really a great way to have more opportunities to be in the courtroom, because other cases just settle so much quicker and so many times more often than patent cases. And so that courtroom experience is really what I wanted. And then that's how I got into to patent law, first with Fish and Richardson and recently with Desmarais.
Oh, so interesting. So prior to that clerkship, you really didn't know what kind of law you wanted to practice, but then watching patent litigators, and was it the subject matter that also really intrigued you, seeing the subject matter?
Yeah, I think the subject matter probably doesn't matter to me as much as just the litigation aspect. I really love all the creative strategies that you can employ in all the different cases, right? Because, and the reason why I say subject matters isn't as interesting is because it changes so often. That's what's interesting to me, is that with every case you have to learn something new and something different. And a lot of people, most patent litigators have a technical degree. As I mentioned, I have a business degree with an emphasis in cinema television. And so I think that in many ways that actually has helped me, because I feel like I'm unencumbered by a technical degree. And I think I work harder in every case to learn the technology deeper, because I feel like I need to go, I need to dig deeper to really get the technology. And that's what interests me. And that's what also gives me a more, I think, diverse set of cases. A lot of patent litigators specialize in, semiconductor cases or pharma cases. I kind of do all of them because they're all the same, in the sense that I have to learn all the technologies new for each case. And that's the part that I really love.
Yeah, interesting. Well, give me a feel for the kind of range of technologies that you do have worked on over the years.
It really is everything, from touch technology with smartphones to ophthalmic products in the pharma space, to medical devices related to photodynamic therapy, to semiconductor chips. And so it really is just a whole gambit.
Yeah, that is really broad range. And you said you even do some pharma patent work, patent life sciences as well?
Yep. And I feel like those cases are one of the, the most interesting, especially presenting to a jury, because it's, you have something that you can really, a lot of people relate to, because everybody's gone to the doctor, everybody has had medical issues. And so I've done medical device cases to pharma cases and Hatch-Waxman cases as well. And so they're just really interesting and I'm really grateful to be able to have such a diverse practice.
Do you have any specific areas of technology that you kind of your favorite, or that you gravitate towards the most?
No, they're all like children. I love them all equally.
Totally get it. Well, you've had obviously this incredible career as a patent litigator. Have you ever thought that maybe you would try going in-house or anything like that? Has that idea ever come across your mind?
Yes, I think every couple of years I try to take a step back and think, should I continue on this path? And so typically when I take that step back and I think about it, I think once you go in-house, there are very few people go back to doing outside counsel practice. And I'm just not quite ready to give up that outside counsel practice yet, because I do love doing the oral arguments, being in front of a jury, and that courtroom practice, which is what drew me there in the first place, I think has kept me there. I think it would be really hard, I think, for me as an in-house counsel to sit there on the sidelines and not be able to make the argument myself. So far I've haven't gone down that path yet.
So even though you never thought about being a lawyer as a kid, or you never thought about it, when you look back on it now, it seems like it really fits your personality. Are you surprised, or do you think like it really does? Like, do you see something about yourself that really does make you suited to being a litigator?
What's interesting? I just, in the fall, it's conference season, right? And so I just came back from a couple of different conferences, and I have been thinking about this a bit, listening to panelists, and in particular, you often hear panelists at conferences talk about your question, which is this passion and identity that's associated with career paths, and that's what has led them to stay in a career for this long. And for me, I have thought about how I want to give a different perspective, because even though it sounds like I'm so passionate about what I do, I don't quite see it that way, because I didn't grow up thinking I wanted to be a patent litigator. Even when I was in law school, I didn't think I wanted to be a patent litigator. I don't think I find my identity in my profession. And a lot of times people think about, like what it takes to do this for so long. And for me, I think it's important to find some satisfaction and some pride in here, but I don't think you necessarily need to find your identity or self-concept within this profession. I think if you anchor your life to any one thing too much, then that's not really productive. And so for me, I actually do treat it as a job. And I like it. I get a high whenever I win, and that's great. And I think that that's what has kept me here. But I get a greater high in other aspects of my life, mostly with my kids. When my kids started walking, I got the greatest high seeing that than I've ever had, and with a win for a case. And kids walking is just a normal thing. And I still very much distinctly remember that moment. If you asked me about a case that I did 13 years ago, I probably have no memory of it. And so I guess the reason why I'm talking about this is because I feel like there's now so much pressure on people to find identity and passion in their jobs. And if someone who is viewing your podcast or like listening to people at conferences think, oh my gosh, I don't feel like I was always meant to be a patent litigator, that could cause someone to not want to keep going, right? And so I guess what I want to do is provide a different perspective, which is it's okay to just see this as a job. And as long as you get satisfaction and pride and some highs with wins, then that's okay. And you can get more of your identity from other aspects of life.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool, Betty. I really appreciate your sharing all that with me. And if in the off chance you do end up doing something else that'd be interesting, please come back and tell me about it.
I will. Thank you.
This is Richard Hsu and Betty Chen. Thanks.